Hello!
Hello,
We are Loops and Lapbars,
I'm Tracy.
and I'm Dave. And we thought for a bit of fun we'd just do sort of like a mock awards ceremony.
Exactly, yeah.
Talk about the...
Welcome to our Christmas special.
Yeah,
Woo!
talk about the good and the bad this year, because obviously we've had quite a few trips and whatnot. So for getting straight into it, the first award that we're going into is going to be...
So, Best Steel Coaster, and the nominees are Ride to Happiness, Fury, Taron, Tau Tatis, Pegasus Express, and Python.
Yeah, and we couldn't really agree. This is something that you'll see as we go forward, that sometimes we'll agree for certain. So rather than having arguments and whatnot, we've got my list and Tracy's list. So for me, my top roller coaster, as you probably know, is Ride to Happiness, followed by Fury, followed by Tau Tatis. They don't really need any introduction. Ride to Happiness is one of the best in Europe. Fury, it doesn't really get talked about as much, but I just really enjoyed it. And Tau Tatis, yeah, Tau Tatis just deserves that. It probably would be even higher if it was probably longer and whatnot, but yeah, phenomenal of all three of those. But they differ ever so slightly to Tracy's.
They do. Yes, my number 3 is Python at Efteling. Really intimidating looking coaster. You get on it though, smooth as bar. Absolutely loved it. Pegasus Express at
Park Asterix.
Park Asterix. Absolutely fun family coaster. Enough thrills to kind of give you, as an adult, to sit there and go, yeah, this is fun. But enough thrills to also give the kids a run for the money as well. And in at number 1 has to be Taron. When we got on this ride this year, I didn't know what to expect. But I love it. It's fast, it's quick, it's twisty-turny, and it proves that a coaster doesn't need loops or insane upside-down bits to be fun.
But in my opinion, that's why Tau Tatis is better than Taron, because it fixes the problem that Taron has, in that it's just too twisty-turny. Taron, fantastic ride. All your choices, they're all really good choices. Same for as mine, obviously. But yeah, that's the best steel coaster. So next category up is going to be Best Wooden Coaster. And our nominations for this one are Wickerman, Troy, Heidi the Ride, Tomahawk, George and the Dragon, and Tornado Zeus.
Yep, and in a first for us both, our number 3 roller coaster is Tomahawk, which is at Portaventura. Now, this is a brilliant little ride. It's next to its bigger brother Stampedia, and Stampedia, if you ever do it, it's rough. But Tomahawk, you get on it, absolute night and day difference. It's smooth, it's cushiony, and you sat there going, well, why couldn't they do that with Stampedia?
Yeah, it's just a comfortable ride. It's Tomahawk. I like it, and I like the fact that it really does feel like they're older siblings. So the big two, Stampede, all the race and whatnot, and then Tomahawk comes in. It's like, can I play? And I just like that about it. It's just one of those fun things about it.
It is lovely little coaster. So in at my number 2 is George and the Dragon. Now this is at Efteling. It's in a wonderfully themed area of Efteling. It's a dueling coaster. Nice long coaster. It's a bit of a rattle like Wicker Man, but not enough to make it uncomfortable, and it's a lovely little ride. And then in for my number 1 is Heidi the Ride, which is at Plopsaland. Now, when you pull up to Heidi, you sit there and go, oh, that looks a bit steep, that first drop, but it's fun. It's fast, it's quick, and it's really, really comfortable. My only wish is that essentially Heidi was a little bit more longer, because it's unhinged enough to be fun, but not to be scary.
Yeah, and moving on to that, in my number 2, which fits nicely, is Wickerman, which is essentially Heidi's bigger brother. They are of a very similar age, manufactured by the same people, but Wickerman is just a longer version of Heidi. But yeah, this year Wickerman seems to be coming into itself. Alton Towers, they keep doing changes to it, but it's just improving it all over. The only thing I do wish is I wish that they'd sort the flames out, because all year the shoulders and things like that have not been flaring. So that's number 2. Number 1, undoubtedly, is Troy at Toverland. I phenomenally love that coaster, to the point where I think it currently sits as number 3 overall. It's not just a good woody; it's a good roller coaster in general. Love the theming, love the rattle of the ride and things like that. But the best thing for me is when it comes back through the station, because there'll be one train loading and then the other train will come straight to the station. It makes a right racket. I absolutely love Troy. So that's our best woodies.
It is. Right then, next category is Best Family Coaster. Now, this is a ride that all the family can get on and going on what the roller coaster database people say is a family coaster. So that's what we've done for this one.
Yeah, it just puts that to bed. 'Cause some people will say that some things are family and whatnot, but...
Yep, so our nominees for this are Pegasus Express, Max and Moritz, Rake, Okie Dokie, Walking Dead the Ride, and Volcar. So in at my number 3 is Rake at Phantasialand. Now this is a boomerang and it's quite a big boomerang compared to what we've got here in the UK, but it's a nice little coaster. It's smooth, you get some G-forces as you go around the twist, both frontwards and backwards, and it's quick loading. It's in a well-themed area because it's next to Taron. And it's just nice. It's a nice coaster.
Yeah, it's. I believe it's the fastest junior boomerang in the world, which kind of makes sense for Phantasialand. But moving on to the next two, we actually agree on. So number 2 for both of us is going to be Pegasus Express at Parc Asterix. I had seen quite a bit about this before we even got there. It was one of the only coasters I knew anything about from Parc Asterix. And yeah, it's fun. It's just pure fun. It's got a tiny little launch to start with. Then you go into a lift hill. You get bells ringing at you. It's Parc Asterix all over it. It's madness, but it's also fun. Then you go into a little show section. Now, when we did it twice, sometimes the show doesn't work, but sometimes the show does. When the show's working, it's kind of god tier.
Yeah.
Then you go backwards. You're right back at the station. It's wonderful. It's a good family coaster. It's good for coaster nerds because you can see all the workings of the coaster. I love that. And that leads us nicely into number 1, which is...
Volcar, which is also at Parc Asterix. Now, when you walk up to this, if you're of a certain age, you will sit there and go, oh, this reminds me of that 1980s coaster growing up on the seaside. And it does. For all intents and purposes, it looks like it sounds like it, and it rides like it as well. The brakes are incredibly fun on this ride. However, because of the model type it is one of only 2 in the world, I believe.
Yeah, the other one being at Flambards in the UK. It's a Hornet coaster, and it's as old as Nemesis.
It is, and the brilliant thing about this ride is what you don't realise is how dark it actually is. Cause
for a kid's ride, yeah.
For a kid's ride, because the idea is you go up the lift hill and the story is essentially Icarus and him essentially trying to get to the sun.
He's falling to his death.
To his death.
At the top of the lift hill there's a sun, and the story is that Icarus flew too close to the sun, melted the wax on his wings and fell to his death. So the sun there symbolises the sun, and then the track symbolises your fall to your death.
Yeah.
Which is completely morbid, but yeah, it's great fun. It is not comfortable in the slightest, but it's a good fun laugh, isn't it? So
it is.
Those are our family coasters.
They are.
So our next award is Best Mine Train, and we put this one in because we've done that many of them. We feel like that they need their own little category. And the nominees for this one are Runaway Mine Train at Alton Towers, Colorado Adventure at Phantasialand, Big Thunder Mountain at Disneyland Paris, El Diablo at Portaventura, Bob Express at Bobbejaanland, and Calamity Mine at Wallaby, Belgium. And moving on straight away, my number 3 is Calamity Mine, and that is at... Wallaby, Belgium. It's very similar to another ride that we'll talk about in a bit, but it's the right kind of feel of a mine train. Yes, Alton Towers' Runaway Mine Train looks and feels like a mine train, but not quite. Calamity Mine is getting into that sort of the realms of it feels like a proper runaway mine train. It's nicely themed. You know, there's lots of little elements in there that are cool, like the little splash down. It doesn't splash down, but the track goes into water, and it looks like it should splash down. But yeah, it's a good introductory mine train to what I would define as a proper mine train. And speaking of proper mine trains,
at my number 3 is Bob Express at Bobbejaanland. Now, when we did the big European holiday this year, this was one of the kind of standout mine trains for me because I love my mine train coasters. And it's a nice long track. It goes out over water. It comes back through the station on its second run at speed, which is really, really nice to see. And it makes a right racket. And you can probably be like, woo! If you go find the video, you will hear me on that video screaming my head off. And it's just fun. It's just such a fun little ride. It's a little bit unhinged and a little bit chuck you into the corner, but not enough that you're going to sit there and get off that and be like, I'm never going on that again.
Yeah,
And it's wonderful.
If you've done Alton Towers Runaway Mine Train, it's exactly the same as that, but just better.
Yeah, it's a bit more unhinged.
Yeah, a bit more unhinged. And speaking of unhinged, number 2 for both of us is El Diablo. Portaventura.
Yeah, El Diablo de Mina is its full name.
La Tren de la Mina, or the Demon Mine Train.
Yeah, and this is one of the longest mine trains we've done. It's got 2, if not 3, I think.
3 lift hills.
3 lift hills in it. It interacts with a water ride and another ride as well in Portaventura, which is really, really nice to see. And yeah, it's a bit crazy. It's a bit unhinged.
It's arguably one of the best looking of the mine trains as well, because yes, number 1 is probably the best looking of the mine trains, but El Diablo, it runs on wooden supports with steel tracks, a hybrid, and it looks the part. It's made by Arrow though, so it's janky and it has all buggery in places.
Yeah.
But it's still good fun. But speaking of number 1, we couldn't not have Colorado Adventure at Fantasyland as number 1, because that is pretty much the definition of what a mine train should be.
Yeah.
Very much like El Diablo, it's got multiple lift hills. Very much like El Diablo, it interacts with a water ride, this one being Chapas.
Yeah.
But this one, it just feels like El Diablo, but more.
Yeah. Colorado Adventure is a little bit more unhinged, and I would not recommend taking your 6-year-old on this as their first ride. Take your seasoned 10-year-old on that's been on a few mine trains before you get them onto this.
Yeah, it's Phantasialand's take on it.
Yeah, it is rough and ready in places.
As mentioned with Rake, they took something that's like, here's a junior coaster, let's make it a junior coaster for everybody to enjoy. Yeah. And Colorado Adventure is exactly the same there. Yeah. So those are our mine trains.
Yeah. Right then, so next category, best dark ride. Now we had to get this list down because there's been a lot of dark rides this year. But nominees are Droomflucht, Symbolica, Terra Terra, Curse at Alton Manor, Phantom Manor in Disneyland Paris, and also Carnival Festival as well. So in at my number 3 is Droomflucht. I apologise for butchering that.
Which means dream flight, that's what it translates to.
This is at Efteling. Now, being Efteling, it is a very, very, very pretty ride, this. And it's an Omni mover, so you get on and you go around the fairy village and you're doing all different fairy things and you're seeing the fairies do different things. And initially when you get on the ride, you're not expecting it to be that long, but it is. It's a really nice long ride. Good sit down for a good 5 minutes. And it's incredibly pretty from start to finish. You genuinely do feel like you are in the fairy world.
Yeah, and it's one of the few dark rides actually. There's a very small argument for it being classed as a roller coaster, because it does make its way to the very top, and there is a central sort of spiral thing where it freewheels. So it's officially definitely defined as a roller coaster, but we call it a dark ride. And moving on to my number 3, Tower of Terror at Disneyland Paris. I feel like that this gave me the true definition of what a Disneyland ride should be. You walk into the facade, and from just seeing the building itself all the way through, there's no point when you feel like you're on a ride. It just generally feels the whole package is there. It was the first ride that I did at Disneyland Paris, and I'm glad I did. I did do it like that because it's probably the best that Paris has to offer, even though they've got some decent roller coasters. I love Tower of Terror. Love the drops and things. But the only thing that I don't particularly like about it is I don't particularly like the Twilight Zone part. Yeah. But I can put that aside to the fact that you pulled up and down so much. Yeah, it's just great fun. It's Tower of Terror.
It's a good ride. It's Tower of Terror. So in at my number 2, staying with Disneyland Paris, is Phantom Manor. Now I've done Haunted Mansion in the Florida park, so I had an idea of what to expect. What I really loved about Phantom Manor is, if you've seen the recent re-release for the Haunted Mansion movie, they have very, very much stuck to the story for Phantom Manor, which was really nice to see, and it was really nice to go in, do the ride and be like, ooh, I know a bit more about this ride now. So really, really enjoyed that. I had high expectations for it. It met them.
I enjoyed Phantom Manor, but not quite as much as I can say I enjoyed Carnival Festival Efteling, which is my number 2. Now, this is one of those rides when I generally got into the queue and I was expecting it to be a bore because it is a kids' ride. But it's Efteling's version of It's a Small World. So I was trying to say it's a small world, which is very difficult to say. But yeah, it's a small world, but done in Efteling fashion using Jokey. Their, well, I think it was an unofficial mascot at one point. And it is stereotypical all the way through. You'll go through, British section, and there'll be, if they could, I'm fairly certain they'd include bar fights in there.
Yeah.
But it's just lovely all the way through.
Yeah, if anyone's ever done Blackpool in the 1980s, you will absolutely love Carnival Festival because you just sat there and it's proper Blackpool vibes in the 1980s with its stereotypicalness.
Yeah, and it's not offensive in any way, shape or form, and it does annoy me that people get offended with stereotypes because I think that they can be used in quite a fun way, and Carnival Festival is that. It is fun. But moving on from there, but still staying at Efteling, there is no way we could not have Symbolica as number one dark ride.
Yeah.
It's so good, it can outdo all the roller coasters at Efteling, in my opinion.
Yeah,
but it's not just my opinion.
No, it's
Something
not.
we share.
It's a trackless dark ride. And to be fair, this was our first trackless dark ride we'd done this year, I think.
It's not the first one we've ever done, but it is the first one that we've done this year, and it was just magical from start to finish.
Yeah, you've got 3 different cars and 3 different routes you can go in. I think there's Heroes Music and the Princess Treasure side of it. So on all 3 tracks,
tours. Full tours out there.
like you have the majority of the same things happen for the first half of the ride, and then it all branches off in the second half of the ride.
Yeah, you see all different scenes and things like that.
Brilliantly
Yeah.
well done, and it's incredibly pretty because it's Efteling.
Yeah, the 2 things that stand out to me, well, there's probably 3 actually. The scene where you're in the greenhouse and you can see the whale. The scene where you're going through the wine cellars and you can see all the other vehicles moving around, but then it climaxes with the dancing scene.
And you're in a ballroom dancing in a car.
That's it. So
wonderful.
you're interacting with other vehicles at the same time as the vehicles are interacting with the animatronics in the room as well. It's just so well done, and you can see. I think it was something stupid like 300,000 euros or something went into that. You can see where the money got spent. 300,000, 3 million euros, whatever. It was a really expensive ride, and a lot of money went into it, but a lot of care as well. Yeah, it's excellent. It's Symbolica.
Yeah.
So those are our top dark rides.
They are.
Moving on now to best interactive dark ride, which we separated out from the regular dark rides because it was getting increasingly difficult to decide which ones were which, and the interactives were taking over. So we did that. So Popcorn Revenge is one of our nominations, along with Mouse au Chocolat, Spider-Man Web Adventure, Buzz Lightyear Laser Blast, Challenger Tutankhamun, and El Paso Special. And for you?
Yep, in at my number 3 is El Paso Special at Bobajan Land. I love this little ride. It's kitschy, it's charming, and it's just all round a nice bit of sort of wholesome fun for an adult.
Wholesome.
It's got all the slapstick elements that you would expect from a Wild West ride. So you go through the bar, you shoot, someone gets slapped, and then the instant you get out the bar, you're literally shooting people and hanging people in the town square. It's that kind of level of dark, and then you go into a bit about Cinco de Mayo. So it's one of them rides. Genuinely makes no sense, but it's fun and it's charming because of it. And you are on a literal park bench for the car, which is just kind of the pièce de résistance.
Yeah, it's a combination of German and British engineering. It feels like the Germans did everything else and we just put a park bench on the seat. Yeah. It's good fun. But then moving to number 2, which is number 2 for both of us, is Mouse au Chocolat.
Yeah, Mouse au Chocolat. This is at Phantasialand, and once again, it's another very well done Phantasialand ride. And it's a bit of a play on words, because if you say Mouse au Chocolat in English, it comes through as chocolate mouse. Say that with a French accent, it's obviously Mouse au Chocolat.
Chocolate mousse.
Or chocolate mousse.
Yeah.
And the idea is that basically you've got your little icing bag and you're going around shooting all the mice that have got into the bakery and are causing untold amounts of havoc. Very, very well done, very interactive, and it's a lovely little ride. You cannot be offended by that ride in any way, shape or form.
No, the only thing that could improve that in even the slightest is not being entirely screen-based, because it is unfortunately all screen-based, but I don't think that takes away from it. I think that the sheer amount of absolute lunacy that's going on screen means that it does. If it was to be physical props, it wouldn't quite come across as that. But yeah, and leading on to
Yeah.
absolute lunacy.
And in at my number 1 is Spider-Man Web Adventure. Now, if you've done Ninjago at Legoland, very similar thing, only you're with Tom Holland and some spider bots, and the spider bots have got everywhere and causing havoc. Very similar sort of game system that you're kind of doing that, but you've got sensors on the top as well. So for those of you that are a bit rubbish at Ninjago, go do Web Adventure, because you annihilate people on it, and it's wonderful, and you come off like, I beat you. I loved it.
It's a good ride, but the difference is for you being number 1, it's my number 3. And it's still very good. And one of the things that I liked about it was the fact that it was inclusive in the scoring. As yes, we were against each other, but at the end of the day, it was about getting a cumulative score.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily about, oh, well, Tracy won, so therefore we're Tracy. Unlike all the other rides, but and I liked the queue line. It had a little pre-show section, which takes you through Stark Factory sort of thing. Then you're into this section with Tom Holland and the spider bots escape. And then from that point forward, all the queue line has got parts of the spider bots in there. It's like they're running through air vents. It's really good fun. And then, as I say, Mouse and Shockout was my number 2, which leads on to number 1, which is definitely the best dark ride in the world. At time of speaking, Popcorn Revenge at Wallaby Holland, or Belgium. Sorry, taking up the insanity of Mouse and Chocolat and just amplifying it even more. So the idea behind this one. Interactive dark ride with trackless elements, and you go into cinema screens and you shoot popcorn incarnations of films. So the idea is that one time a day, film was bad, you threw popcorn at the screen. Well, now the popcorn's getting revenge for all the people that were doing that. And yeah, there'll be popcorn superheroes, popcorn Jurassic Park and everything. It's just absolute madness, but it's done to a T, and it's great fun.
It is, yeah. It's another really, really well done little fun ride that you can ride if you're 10 or you're 100.
Yeah, I mean, we did it. We did it. We had 2 different rides on it, and there was a younger lad who was on with our ride, and he destroyed us. And then there was an older guy who, and he was
easily mid-70s.
Yeah,
and he's going on, he's destroying everyone in the sight. It's just like, right then.
Absolutely phenomenally good fun, and that's probably the best thing about these things, is that they bring people together for just a common purpose of just having fun.
Yeah.
And that's why I think that we needed to have an interactive dark ride category on its own. So those were the interactive dark rides.
They were. Right then, so next category, best water ride. So it can either be a rapids or it can be a log flume. It's got water in it. So nominees are, we've got Chapas, we've got Tidal Wave, Vliegende Hollander.
Vliegende Hollander.
Thank you. El Rio Rapids, the River Quest, and Stormforce 10.
Now, the thing with this one is we actually agree on the 3 best water rides, but they're in a different order.
Yeah.
The only thing that is common across the 2 of us is the fact that we both think that Vliegende Hollander, Flying Dutchman, is the 3rd best. Now, this is a water coaster. It's the water coaster in the truest sense, in that you start off in a boat on water and whatnot. You go through some really, really cool scenes. And then the latter half of the ride is more of a roller coaster. You go through twists and turns, just like into a big splashdown. Wonderful ride from start to finish. It was the bar setter for Efteling up until Symbolica. I think I'll probably still put that second at Efteling. But anyway, that's my take on Vliegende Hollander.
Yeah, it's a lovely themed ride, and genuinely the queue line is very much all queue themed up from start to finish, and I especially like the fact that when you go into the station, you genuinely do feel like you have stepped back into Victorian London. It's epic. Mm-hmm. And then you're kind of looking at where you were in the queue line, and they've dressed it up like a tavern from the station side, but because you've got people going through, looks like there's people in the queue line, which I thought was a really
in the tavern.
In the tavern, sorry.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a really brilliant way of doing that. And like Dave says, it's a brilliant ride from start to finish. And the sense of scale they've got in some of their sections is out of this world.
Yeah, you do feel really minuscule in some of those.
They're like, okay, I'm next to big boats here. Yeah, and it's a brilliant ride. Absolutely brilliant.
On to next one, which for me is my number 1. Well, this was the one that Tracy said was number 2, and it's Chapas.
It is.
Chapas is the steepest log flume in the world, and with a title like that, it could be at no other place other than Phantasialand. And yeah, this one we did it on the second day of our 2-day visit,
did.
and obviously we constantly were walking past it, and you just whatnot, you see, you get all excited because it has got one of the most photogenic splashdown sections of any water ride, outside tidal wave and such like that. But yeah, you don't realise quite how much is going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Once you leave the station, it's almost like it goes through different countries. It's so long, there's so much to do, and the turnaround section, rather than having a turntable, you come in, you're forced across, and then you're shoved back out again. It's brutal.
Yeah, it's brutal, it's fun, but also at the same time you don't realise, like Dave says, how big that ride is. It is a massive ride, and you don't see 3/4 of it, which is kind of like, right, okay, this is new. And the seating arrangements are different from a lot of other log flumes as well.
You're still in a log, and you want a breast sort of thing, but it does have lap bars.
Yeah.
And I've mentioned in the Fantasyland video, but make sure your feet are comfortable when you lock those things. 'Cause I didn't enjoy it as much as I could have done because I was constantly thinking of how much in pain I was because I sat wrong. But that's by the by.
So in at my number 1, Dave's number 2 is River Quest. Now this is also in Phantasialand, and initially when you go onto the ride, you are genuinely there like, alright, okay, steepest River Rapids ride in the world. And you kind of walk around a bit and you're just like, right, okay, fine, fair enough. You see what you think is the steepest drop. It is not. That is the third and final drop.
We'll go into that a bit later on.
Yeah.
But my God, it's such a good rapids ride.
It is. It's sort of the first lift hill takes, it's a lift.
It's a vertical
lift, and it drops you out. And but to be fair, that is where probably the camera should be, because that first drop, you do not expect it. And I'm not going to spoil it. It's phenomenal. If you ever get to Phantasialand, go on it. You will potentially get wet.
Soaked.
And it's one of them, it's potluck as to whether you get soaked. But because it's a rapids ride, it's a proper rapids ride. It's a lot of fun. And yeah, we will recommend it.
Yeah. So
I loved it.
Those are our water rides.
Yeah.
So the next category up is going to be Best Flat Ride. And for the nominations, this one we've got Talacan, Serpentia Emplumata, La Hydra de Laine, Laser Dodgems, Derby Racer, and Crazy Barrels. Different mix of these ones. Starting off with yours.
Yep, so in at my number 3 is Derby Racer at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. I love this ride. This is exactly how a carousel should be. Maybe, yes, could do with step ladders for the shorter people to get up on the horses. However, the fact that it goes at essentially 20 miles an hour and it feels a lot faster than that is brilliant, and I love it.
It's fun. Not my idea of fun, but it's still fun. Moving on to my number 3, I'm going with Serpentia Emplumada, which is incredibly difficult to say. It was Feathered Serpent, anyway, at Portaventura. And this is the first of that kind of ride, a Schwarzkopf polyp that I've ever ridden. And it's one of those kind of like cornerstones of theme park rides. Your Ferris wheels, you got your roller coasters, polyps, or octopus rides as they would have been called. And it was just good fun. I was expecting to come off it really ill, and I didn't. Which means that either I've got a higher tolerance than I thought I have, or the ride was run properly, and I'm going to go with the latter. I really enjoyed that. Love the Mayan theming, so that's that.
Yeah, for number 2, we both agree on this, and it's similar to the Serpentine in the fact that this is La Hydra de Laine at Parc Asterix. Very similar sort of ride, different
seating
arrangements, and a slightly different ride as well, because you kind of went up as it went up and round in a circle.
Yeah, I liked La Hydra de Laine. As we say, we both agree on that one. The difference between that one and Serpentia Emplumada, apart from the seating arrangement, as you said, is the way that it's run. Right. Because there'll be points where you're cycling on flat, then it'll lift around and whatnot, but then it'll also stop and carry on doing the sort of wave motions.
Yeah.
And I feel like that fit the theme better, because you were in little boats and it almost did feel like a Hydra was sort of messing with you and whatnot. It was really good fun, that one.
Yeah, nice little ride. Yeah, and then for my number 1, I've got Serpentine at Portaventura, which Dave has just explained about. So that leaves you on to his number 1.
Number 1 for me was one that was coming for a very long time. I've seen videos of it over and over again, and it's been one of those bucket list rides that I've wanted to ride, and it's Talakan at Phantasialand. I like top spins.
I don't.
They're as soon as I see one, I kind of have to get on one. They're things that I grew up playing on Roller Coaster Tycoon and stuff like that. But I always build them and whatnot. I just had a fascination with them. And Talakan takes that, to the max. It's got the theming. It's got the soundtrack. It is insane how that ride runs. It just looks the absolute part. I could stand and watch it all day.
Yeah, I'm not going to deny it does look good, and the theming's good, and the music's good, but top spins for me, not really my favourite thing at all. I did come off Talakan like I am never going on that again.
You will be going on it again. But yeah, those are our best flat rides.
Yep. Next category then. Best New Ride for 2023. Now this is awarded to the rides that opened up this year that we got a chance to ride. So in our nominees we've got Tau Tatis, we've got The Curse at Alton Manor, Uncharted El Enigma du Penance, Ghost Train, Thomas and Percy Submarine Splash, and Nemesis Subterra. Now in at my number 3, I'm a big kid at times, Thomas and Percy Submarine Splash. Now I like a gentle ride, I like a good kids ride, and I've got to say that Thomas and Percy Submarine Splash at Drayton Manor is a really, really nice addition to their Thomas area, which is already very good. It's nice to see kind of Thomas breaking into new levels of kind of going now with submarines and stuff like that, which is interesting, and I love it because you can get one person up to 18 stone roughly in the boat, so for your bigger people you can go on it. It's funny when you ground out round the last corner and you have to be pulled in, but that's part of its charm.
Yeah, it's a good fun ride. It's not in my top 3 unfortunately, but yeah, I was going into that expecting it's a kids ride, very much like Carnival Festival, but it's good fun. We've had a good few laughs on that. We've taken quite a few visits with friends and stuff, and we've just had a right laugh. Then moving into my number 3, I'm putting Nemesis Subterra there because I heard nothing but bad things about Subterra, how terrible it was when it first came out and how it's not so great now, and I was pleasantly surprised by how good it was.
Yeah. We didn't expect the ride we got.
Yeah, I knew pretty much the ins and outs of what happens in the ride, but I don't know. It could be being a bit longer and whatnot, but the whole sequence was just fun, and the actors, they do a lot better job than certain other new for 2023 park editions in the UK.
Yeah.
But I think it was better than it was given credit for. It's not to take away from the other new editions we had in the UK, but I just think that one was the best for me. And then moving on to the next 2, which are very similar in our orderings, but one's in front of the other for either of us. Yep. And the first one is going to be
Tau Tatis. Now this is in at my number 2. This is at Park Asterix. This opened new for this year, and gotta say, brilliantly themed ride, great addition to the park, and it's one of them coasters that for sort of the adult thrill seeker, it's a brilliant ride. For the junior thrill seeker looking to make that step, it's that next step up of, oh, this is scary, but it's not going to terrify me. Mm-hmm. And it's smooth, it's fun, it's painful in the rain, I'm not going to lie.
But anybody can do that.
And yes, and there are elements in it, you don't realise that it's got sort of extra elements until you're actually on the ride.
Yeah, because most of the big parts of the ride you can see, such as the reverse spike and the hill, but you don't have you can't see the stall and such, and that's the first stall that we've done, and I was pleasantly surprised by how fun they are, because I was expecting them to be overhyped by everybody else, but it was fun.
Yeah, for me, the hidden element essentially was the Beyond Vertical down the other side of the top hat, because it doesn't look like it's a Beyond Vertical drop until you're actually up there, and you're just like, oh my word.
Yeah, the track drops away from you. It's great. Tau Tatis is wonderful. And my number 1, which is your number 2, is back to Portaventura for Uncharted.
Yeah.
Now this one has got a really great queue line, which kind of ruins the experience a little bit as well because of how long you queue for it, because it's not the greatest of throughputs.
Yeah, it
But
is the queue into the queue into the queue into the ride.
yes, but once you're actually into the building, it's good fun in there. There's plenty of things to look at, and the ride systems itself, I think, are what carry it more so than the actual Uncharted IP, which is a bit of a shame because I like Uncharted. I think it's a great game series, and the film was pretty good fun as well. But yeah, it's screen dominated, but there's so much going on the roller coaster. I like that myself.
Yeah.
You got the trains turn, you've got multiple launches, and all right, some of them don't necessarily need to be there. You've got return spikes and the parts where the train edges over and drops off. It almost feels like it's free falling. Good fun, not as good as Tau Tatis for me because Tau Tatis is my number one, but it's still an excellent ride.
Yeah, and it's going to be nice to see potentially where, based on Uncharted, potentially future roller coaster development goes with adding in them extra elements like the screens and the multiple launches and the everything's going on everywhere.
Yeah, being a more of a instead of like Tau Tatis is a roller coaster, whereas Uncharted is a dark ride roller coaster.
Yeah.
And I'm quite interested to see that. It's almost like they thought, symbolic is good, and we like Taron. Why not put the two together? It didn't quite work out. Now both those are better than Uncharted, but Uncharted is still very good.
Yes.
So those are the best new for 2023 rides.
They are.
Next award that we got up is Best UK Park, and this is obviously awarded to the park that we think just did the best throughout last year. Obviously in the UK. Nominations for this one are Alton Towers, Thorpe Park, Legoland, Chesington World of Adventures, Gulliver's Valley and Flamingo Land, all the big names that you're going to expect. Into my choices first, I'm going to start off with Legoland Windsor. And Legoland never does anything wrong, I don't think. It disappointed me the first time I went there, but I think I had my expectations far too high. And yeah, it's just settled into definitely one of the best in the UK, irrelevant of what happened last year and whatnot. Love it. Moving into number 2, Alton Towers, which would be number 1 if it weren't for the fact that it's not running its best at the moment, and there is another park that I feel has just done so much more this year. But yeah, love Alton Towers. Hopefully they get the issues sorted out that they've had this year with the temporary rides and stuff like that, and they keep expanding on their events because Alton Towers is just good. But unfortunately, Thorpe Park is better. And in years gone by, Thorpe Park was always behind Alton Towers for me. Alton Towers is more magical. Thorpe Park is a true it's a thrill park. But this year, they've listened to advice on merchandise. I can now buy T-shirts and stuff there. They've expanded the merchandise line. The park is now currently going through a glow up. It's getting everyone's saying a world-leading coaster, Hyperia. Looking forward to it, but probably not as much as some others are. And yeah, the whole park, it just feels like they are putting some effort in to make it a great theme park, and I like that, which leads very nicely into your list.
It does, yeah. Thorpe Park is at my number 3. I like Thorpe Park. It is nicely themed, but it is genuinely one of them parks. Once you've done it a few times, you know where you're going, you know what order you're going to hit stuff in. It gets a bit boring. But yeah, I like Thorpe Park, and like Dave says, they have extended the merchandise this year. They're getting a glow up through winter. They're unfortunately not retracking Colossus, which I think they should do.
No, they should retrain Colossus. And the Thorpe Park Passholder group.
Thorpe Park Passholder group, that's a new thing as well, which is also quite good as well. So number 2, we did Gulliver's Valley this year for the first time. As most of you know that have been following us for a while, we don't have children. Yay!
So yeah, the Gulliver's Parks are off limits normally.
Yeah, Gulliver's Parks are off limits. We did this through a
event with Love to Explore.
Event with Love to Explore, and absolutely brilliant for a kids park. Absolutely wonderful. If you've got kids, I do recommend that you take them to a Gulliver's Park, because there's enough stuff there to keep them busy, enough stuff there for the older ones to actually get thrills on, but not enough to actually terrify them and keep them off of parks either.
Yeah, Valley is probably the best one, because we did two, Gulliver's Valley and Gulliver's Kingdom, and Valley, it had got more of a range. So here's tiny baby roller coaster, and here's Gyrosaur. They have got a lot to offer.
Yeah, got a lot to offer. And my number one is Legoland Windsor. It's going to take a lot to knock Legoland off for me, because I love Legoland. As an adult that is an adult Lego fan, I can sit there and be like, oh my god, Lego everywhere, and get dead excited about it. And it's got one of my favourite rides in the UK in there with Haunted House Monster Party. Love that ride.
We will get to talk about that a bit later on.
We will.
But yeah,
But yes,
that's one I
that
like.
pretty much rounds up our best UK parks. Best European park then. So obviously best European park in Europe that we went to this year. So nominees are Bob's Land, PortAventura World, Park Asterix, Efteling, Wallaby Belgium and Phantasialand. Now in at my number 3 is Wallaby Belgium. Absolutely brilliant park. It's all set round a lake, so you can genuinely hit one ride after another and literally do 2 or 3 circuits if you want to. The Fast Pass, which when we got it we didn't actually need it because park operations are that good, is exceptional value for money as well. Food and drink offerings, they were good as well, and it's a nice park. It's got a mix for old stuff and young stuff, and it covers all ages, so yeah, really nice park all round.
Yeah,
that one.
nothing really to add on Wallaby Belgium. It's not made my top 3, but still a great park.
Yep, and then that leads us nicely into my number 2, which is, and also Dave's number 2, which is Park Asterix.
Yes.
Now, Park Asterix, as in the name, it's based around the Asterix and Obelix comics, so if you've grown up with them, you'll know a bit about the characters, and if you don't really need to, because it kind of gives you that without putting it too much in your face.
Yeah, on that, I knew a little bit about Asterix and Obelix because I've seen odd bits, but apart from a few characters, I didn't know much about the whole wider thing. And now we do. It gave us a little bit of an interest in it. I mean, the night before we were watching one of the films in French.
Hotel,
yeah, in French. It's Park Asterix did what I was expecting Disneyland Paris to do, in that it wowed me. I wasn't expecting top dollar from it, but it definitely provided.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was because of the Halloween event though.
Yeah, we did the Halloween event and they took it up to kind of 11 and we weren't expecting that, and it was absolutely brilliant. The park itself is really very good. The only negativity really is a bit of the food offerings, but yeah, we managed that.
Yeah, it's not that the food offerings were terrible.
As a park and merchandise, it has got one of the biggest merchandise selections for wide-ranging stuff for a park we've ever been to.
That will be approached later.
Yes, which will be approached later. So, my number 1 in this list is Efteling. It is a magical park and I love it. If you want Disney without the Disney, go to Efteling. You will not be disappointed. It's a massive park, and even if you don't go on any of the rides, you can walk around it and just take pictures. It's that pretty. You don't really need to go on any of the rides. Unfortunately, we didn't do Baron, which we kind of went for.
Yeah, that was the main thing about Efteling.
But that
for me.
said, it didn't really take away from the day, 2 days. We still had enough time to do everything, and even then we still didn't do a lot of it because there's 6 or 7 shows they have go on. Like, the park offering for value for money and ride lineup is phenomenal, and I'd love to go back and see it when it's covered in snow because it'd look even prettier.
Yeah. Moving on from that, Efteling's my number 3, and everything, yep, tick, apart from the fact that there's just not quite enough thrill there for me. But that's just me. It is the point about being a subjective sort of thing and having your own opinions. Efteling is a phenomenal park. It just needs that little bit more for me. But I can't really add to that. I loved the food, loved the rides that we did get. It's the dark ride capital of Europe, so far as I'm concerned. And we're getting another one next year. We're getting Dance Macabre, which I'm looking forward to that one. So hopefully we can get back there. My number 2, Park Asterix. As I say, it wowed me. Nothing more to add to Park Asterix. It's got great rides, lots of good food. Everything else is wonderful. But top one for me is PortAventura in Spain, and the reason why this one stands out is it's very much like Park Asterix in that it wowed me. There was some great rides there, some of Europe's best, Dragon Khan, Shambhala, etc. But the point that stands out for me, and it's stand out for me for a long time now, many years, is going to be standing by the lake with Furious Baco, obviously not running because it's night time, with a beer, watching the Fiesta Ventura thing, and I just thought this feels like a proper welcome to a theme park.
It does.
It was just so good.
Yeah,
Love
and that's
that.
even before you get to the fact that essentially you've got Ferrari World, which is with it included in that price, and you've potentially got a water park on site, which yes is a €20 upcharge, but it's a massive bloody water park. So it's just like, it's insane what they've got on that one offer, and the fact you can chuck it all together in a package holiday is phenomenal. We did that for less than, I think, £1,000 between the two of us,
Yeah,
with spending money.
I finished that. Yeah, with spending money as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was just so good. Can't recommend Portaventura enough.
Yeah.
Everyone ribbed on it about how operations are terrible and whatnot, and I don't feel like we had that much. The only one that would probably say yes is Furious Backhoe, but we never queued for it.
No, we didn't queue for that. We
no.
fast passed that, admittedly.
So, but yeah, it's great. So yeah, those are the best, in our opinion, the best European parks.
Yep.
Next, the award is going to be Best Event, and in a first, we actually agree that all of these are the same. But nominations are Parc Asterix's Pure sur la Parc, Drake Manor's Coronation Street Party, Thought Park's Fright Nights, Thought Park's Oktoberfest, Thought Park's Mardi Gras, and Plopsaland Halloween Scare Nights. And like I say, we agree on our top three, which is...
Plopsaland Pan is in at our number 3 for their Halloween Scare Nights. Now, when we did this year, we weren't too sure what to expect, because we'd done Plopsaland sort of before, during the day, brilliant. So at night, adds a whole new level. Ride to Happiness in the dark becomes quite a scary ride if you're a bit unsure about
It's a beast.
But they have scare mazes around, and the one thing I like about the European parks, especially this and our number 1 event, all the scare mazes are 14 and older, and they do check that essentially children are 14 or older, which I really do like. Because you can have children that are younger than that in the parks, not a problem, but the scare mazes are strictly that. And our number 1 park, they were definitely saying to people, look, if you want to take your kid in, that's fine, but we're not responsible. So that was really, really nice to see.
And they're all included in the price. They call them haunted houses over there. So they have haunted houses, which are the same as our scare mazes, but they also have scare zones, which are the same as our scare zones. And the scare zones, as you queue, you straight in sort of thing, but the haunted houses, the queues are astronomical. So essentially
and
the way that they work
you
is...
have got to pre-book tickets, which we didn't realise, but if we go back, we know what to do.
You don't necessarily have to pre-book tickets. It's more the fact that you can buy a ticket that allows you to get into the queues quicker. And I think it's probably definitely worthwhile doing that based on what we saw.
Yeah.
But moving on from there, the only UK one that made it into this, Thought Park Fright Nights. It's Thought Park at its absolute best. It's a bit of a shame that Thought Park's moving away from the scare capital of the UK, because Hyperia is obviously not going to be based on something doom and gloom, which is nice, I suppose. But we saw the Ride and the Swarm, Nemesis Inferno to some extent. You know, they're all sort of dark themed rides, if you will. Fright Nights just adds on to that. We didn't get to do the scare mazes this time around because...
sold out.
Unlike the European parks, you have to buy them over here, and there was no option for us to buy them because we turned up. We did half a day for Fright Nights. But yeah, in the past, Fright Nights has been great. This year was just as good, even though we didn't do the scare mazes.
Exactly, yeah. Fright Nights does have a really, really good atmosphere, and it is kind of fun seeing scare actors run around after kids that are 14, 15 screaming their heads off.
And the genius idea of putting a scare zone right in a thoroughfare, right next to where Nemesis Inferno and the Ghost Train is at Thought Park is genius. Because it means that basically you have to go through there. It is great. But that leads us on to number 1, which settled us on the park as well as the event as well.
Yeah.
It's Parc Asterix's Pure sur la Parc, or Fear in the Park.
Yeah. Now, this was another one that we'd never done before. We didn't know what to expect. And for it, you have to buy a separate ticket for the evening. So the park's open like 9 till 6 during the day. There's a sort of downtime between 6 and 7. And then from 7 o'clock through to 1 a.m, it properly kicks off in Parc Asterix. And it's brilliant. If you want a Halloween event, can't recommend it enough.
That one, if you don't do anything else,
Yeah.
go for that event and pay the additional cost, because you just get so much for your money. When we went, obviously, as you say, we did the park through the day. We then went on to the Halloween event. There was a rave, that then that then suddenly melted into a show. There was scare actors throughout the park. There was chainsaws, smoke and mirrors, and it was just wonderful. It was like Thorpe Park do, but better in every way.
Yeah, and sort of we got stuff we weren't expecting. Like, once again, there were scare mazes that we didn't realise were included in the price. We did pay an upcharge for the new one this year, and I have to say, absolutely brilliant. I'm going to say the rules are slightly different in Europe because the actors can touch you, but you can't touch them. And they did stuff in this scare maze that we weren't expecting, like actors coming down from the ceiling and touching you. Someone jumping out of a pool of water that you wouldn't have thought was deep enough to actually have a person in there.
Yep.
That was an absolutely genius bit, and absolutely scared the crap out of both of us.
Yeah, it was. I don't think it's necessarily been the best scare maze that we ever did, but it was one of those that's going to be very memorable because of how well it was done.
And then there's sort of laser shows and projection shows going on all around the park. And fireworks, and they even have a themed buffet. And the themed buffet, we only went in because I was like, no, let's go there for tea. And I'm so glad we did.
Yeah.
Because it was one of them little hidden gems that you don't know about unless you actually, let's go there for tea kind
of
thing.
It was.
And we got dinner and a show.
It wasn't advertised as such. It was. I just assumed it was like a buffet, but they changed a few things, the decor and whatnot, and that was it. No, it really did feel like a show with a buffet attached. Really, really good fun. Can't recommend the Fear of the Park at Park Asterix enough. But that's one of the few things that we definitely
and then
agree
you
on.
get night rides on pretty much 95% of the rides as well, which a lot of them in the dark are completely different to how they run during the day.
I'd like to have done Osiris at night, but that's hopefully next year's thing. So those are our best events.
Yep. Right, got to a negative category. This is our worst event that we've been to this year. Now, understandably, a lot of these are going to be in the UK. So, we've got Drayton Manor for their Summer Nights and also their Vikings event. Disneyland Paris for Halloween, Alton Towers for the Smiler Takeover, Springfest at Legoland Windsor, and Drayton Manor as well again for Festival. So
for me, the worst event, unfortunately, it feels like it's going to be a bit brutal, but Drayton Manor's Vikings was Summer Nights, which was Festival. They all felt very similar, and Vikings was lacking so much because some of the stuff that was promised wasn't there. There was no. There were supposed to be fire breathers and whatnot.
Yeah, there were meant to be fire breathers and a show, and they just didn't happen.
No, it felt either very rushed and to try and get something out. And it just didn't connect, unfortunately for me. Moving on to number 2, which is Smiler Takeover. This should have been an absolute killer event because it's Alton Towers celebrating the 10th anniversary of the Smiler. I think that the Festival of Thrills event last year was good but could have been improved. And I feel like they took a step back with it this year. It didn't go quite as well as what it should have done. The Smiler things that were set up around the different rides, they were kind of cool and whatnot, but it didn't feel like the Smiler was taking over, and it wasn't the central focus in some regards, and that is a bit of a shame, which leads you on to your list, because we'll talk about number 1 together.
Yep. So number 3 for me was the Smiler Takeover for pretty much the same reason. If you're going to have a ride take over the park, it should take over the park. There shouldn't just be one thing in a queue line every now and then. The little show they did in front of the Smiler, that was very, very good. And the stuff they had going on in the Smiler area, also very good. But the rest of the park, it was kind of like, once you got out of that, it was like, oh, it's here. Yeah. And it's just like...
It's a shame.
It's just a bit meh. So number 2 for me was the Summer Nights Festival at Drayton Manor. Now, this followed the Coronation Day event, which was quite a good event, and we enjoyed that. I expected the Summer Nights to be relatively in the same vein, which it was, but it was also considerably lacking. There were no fireworks for it, which I felt there kind of probably should have been. And once again, it was just Drayton Manor this year going, really good event. No, we can't be bothered. And that's kind of the image that we kind of got for the rest of the events, unfortunately.
Which is what leads on to our number 1, which was Drayton Manor Festival. And it was going to be Smiler Takeover for me as number 1, and same for you with Summer Nights. But then we realised, oh, hang on, no, we did 4 events at Drayton Manor Festival. We forgot about it. And I suppose the part of the reason why I forgot about Festival was because it was on the same day that we did the Attraction Source event at Drake Manor. But yes, Festival did feel lacking because I don't remember seeing anything about it.
No, there wasn't too much about it. They kind of bigged it up as a bit of Mardi Gras. Now, considering sort of Fort Park, Alton Towers have done Mardi Gras, and a few other sort of local parks now have done their own Mardi Gras events the last few years, you'd have figured out that, maybe they're going to kind of kick it up a notch, they're going to get some ideas, and it's going to be good. But no, there was really nothing to tell you it was kind of like Festival or there was Carnival going on. There was none of that. So it was severely lacking.
Yeah.
And it was just like, well, this is meant to be a party event, and no, you've got the same DJ playing the same songs on that he was playing on the last event.
Yeah, what
so,
if this
it needs
kind
a
of
bit of shake up.
Kind of like a bit of a bash at Drake Manor, and I do apologise if you really like Drake Manor, but this year it felt like all their events were exactly the same. Some were so lacking, like Festival and Vikings, that it took away from the others, because I thought Summer Nights was decent, but they've got the formula is right there. Anything that Merlin are doing with their events, just essentially copy that. Because Merlin will put on stuff that Drake Manor will call an event. It's like that's the stuff that happens in the park every day anyway. And yeah, it's such a shame on that regard. But those are unfortunately our first negatives. That's our worst events.
Yeah.
Go back into a positive award. This time it's for Best Food. And the nominations for this one are Drake Manor, Efteling, Fantasyland, Portaventura, Disneyland Paris and Toverland, as you'd expect some big names in there. And moving on to number 3 with you, it's going to be...
It's Portaventura. Now, I like Portaventura for the whole package deal that it offers. The buffet breakfast we had, because we did do a package deal for this one, because that was easiest and it was cheapest. The buffet breakfast, absolutely phenomenal. Offers in the park, little bit kind of lacking in places. The food is all done fresh in front of you, and that's really, really wonderful. I like to see that. It's relatively good value for money as well. But sort of if you want something specific, you could find yourself, if you've got 3 or 4 people wanting something specific, walking all across the park.
Mm-hmm. But the sit-down meal that we had there was really tasty.
We did have a sit-down meal, and that was really good as well. Was it value for money? Probably not. It was a little bit more on the pricier side, but it was included with our hotel package. Because you can take the option to eat on the park for your evening meals if you want to.
Yeah.
So yes, it was nice food, bit lacking in places. But yeah,
still very good.
Still very good, and they do refillable drinks, so that is always a plus.
Yeah.
And the refillable drinks containers over there are quite big. You get kind of roughly 2 pints worth in your container, which is all good.
Yes. So, moving on to my number 3, and we'll go into first and second in a moment because they're very similar. Mine's actually Drake Manor. I know I've been a bit negative about Drake Manor with that, but their pizzas are sublime.
Yeah.
It pretty much is that's carrying it, but we had we tried the chicken place, we tried the burger place, and nothing...
And the fish and chips as well.
Nothing is offensive at all. The fish and chips is a bit offensive in the price.
Yeah.
But their pizzas are they're just what you want. They're always there what you want at the right time. The only thing is that when we went to Vikings, the pizza place was shut.
Yeah, by the time we got to the pizza place, it closed.
Yeah, which is a bit of a shame. But they're not necessarily anything sparkling by, Domino's or Pizza Express or something like that standards, but I really like their pizzas. They're just lovely.
15 quid for 15 inches of pizza. You can't go wrong. Bit on the pricier side, but if you're eating them yourself, nice filler. Yeah,
and it's quality. It's quality food. Which leads into 1 and 2. So these are 2 parks that are in different order for myself and Tracy. For me, number 2 is Efteling. Now Efteling is, as we said, it's special. It doesn't just give you burgers and chips. It gives you themed foods.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly what it was that I had when we went to that burger place at the time. But it was tasty. It was, I think it was like not a hummus burger or something like that, but something a bit bizarre, and it was just really nice. Nothing that we had at Efteling was bad at all.
Yeah, and Efteling is one of them places, being a big park, it caters for everyone. And it does tend to cater for gluten-free and potentially a bit more on the vegan front than a lot of other parks. Not that other parks don't do it, but Efteling it's a little bit more noticeable. I mean, to say I paid €10 for a pasta box, and the pasta box itself was quite chunky. And in there I got parmesan and I got a bit of focaccia with it as well, and I was just like, oh my word, blown away. And I actually struggled to finish the pasta box.
Yeah, the hotel food was nice too,
Yeah.
and it was, you weren't just getting pub classics, fish and chips and pizza and stuff like that. We had all sorts on there. It was
I
lovely.
mean, saying even the snacks, because Efteling is in at my number one for this category. Even the snacks, we got essentially what was a sub, or it should have been a sub, but it was more of a massive ass flatbread. It was huge, and it was literally €6, and all done fresh in front of you. Brilliant.
Lovely,
Can't fault Efteling for the food. I really can't.
No, the only thing that I can fault Efteling on is the fact it's not Fantasyland, because that's my number one. And the reason why Fantasyland is number one for me, Charles Lindbergh. Though their portion sizes were a bit smaller, I actually came away feeling, I'm quite full on that one.
And just for those that don't know, for your meals within the Charles Lindbergh, they are included in the price.
Yeah,
So
it's a
you've not got to pay extra.
proper 3-course sit-down meal. But what made Fantasyland for me the best thing, because I still remember it now, is sitting outside in the Mexican restaurant, watching chapas and taking in the air and whatnot, eating those burritos and those burritos
and
were just
tacos.
godlike.
Yeah. Fantasyland's in at my number two, because Efteling just pipped it very slightly.
It is very toss of a
Yes.
coin between those two, though.
Yeah, and Fantasyland, like Efteling, it caters for everything. If you fancy focaccia, you can go to the Italy section and get that. You fancy tacos, you can go to Mexico. You fancy something American, you can go to the American section. Want noodles, off to China you go.
Yeah.
And then they have kind of a few odd things thrown in, and you're just like, oh my word,
Yeah,
choice.
one of the things that I would
do.
have liked to have tried when we were over there was in the Klugheim area, because it always smelt like barbecue. And Fantasyland is just so
Yeah,
good.
and once again, it's value for money as well. Like, I got a massive bit of focaccia for €7 that I was only going to have as a snack. It ended up doing me lunch.
Everybody think you're obsessed with focaccia.
It's good. It's nice bread.
And that leads us nicely to our that's our best foods awards.
Another negative. So we've done best food. This is worst food. So this is going to the park where the offerings were lacking or not value for money. So in the running, we've got Alton Towers, Fort Park, Chesington, Plopsaland Park Asterix, and Gulliver's Valley as well. So in at number 3 for me was Gulliver's Valley. Now, granted, this is a kids with adults park. It is proper family park, and they are more catered for families taking their own lunches in, which is not a problem. Don't have an issue with that. But the reason it's at number 3 for me is because their ordering system, where you go in and you do it all via the kiosk and pay by card, isn't very well done.
It's not intuitive.
It's not intuitive, and it's not clear what you're actually getting for the price. Because initially I ordered a burger, and I figured because of the way the system's set up, it's just a burger by itself. Didn't realise it come with chips and a drink, so I ended up ordering an extra chips and a drink when I didn't need to. And there was no signage around to tell me that on the boards or anywhere in the vicinity before I ordered. So that's why for me they are number 3.
Yeah, the food was all right, but I agree with you on that one. As for me, my number 3 is Park Asterix, which it's a shame that Park Asterix has to be there, but it weren't necessarily all of the food, because we kind of lived on the toasties while we were there. The buffet was good, but not great. But the theming carried that. But the thing that sort of took away from me was the way that you sometimes served. It almost came across as you've inconvenienced me at work sort of thing. So that's why Park Asterix is down there. There's plenty of options, and I'd like to get in some of the big restaurants, I think.
Yeah, they've got more sit-down restaurants in Park Asterix than kind of standalone grab-and-go things, and they are a bit lacking on grab-and-go, I feel. Because you were quite limited in, you can have this, or you can go to a restaurant. And it's just like, right then.
So that's it. And then leading on to our first and second, which will probably come as no surprise, but for number 2, we're putting Chessington World of Adventures. That is primarily because Aramark.
Yeah.
But mostly as well, when we came back from Europe, we went to go see the World of Jumanji. Once we'd done that, we went to go and have some dinner, and there was nothing open.
No, there was nothing open kind of in the areas, and there was nothing really on the grab and go that we kind of fancied. So we thought, oh, well, we'll give the steak restaurant a go. We've been here hundreds of times, not done the steak restaurant, we'll give it a go. We've heard good things. And unfortunately, we had a really bad experience in there. Queue was phenomenally long. They had literally one person serving, and then they ran out of half of it by the time we got there. And when I asked for essentially what was an acceptable substitution, because I've worked in catering and hospitality and would have been an acceptable substitution, I was told kind of flat out no, and we kind of had to really mix and match with what they've got left, which if you're someone that's got intolerances or allergies, that's really not
good.
It's not good. It's not good customer service. We struggled, and like, to be fair, we haven't really got any intolerances or major allergies. And yeah, I was just like, we've struggled at that. It's not good.
Yeah. And that's about the only thing, though, unfortunately. When Chessington's doing well, it is doing well, but the problem is that a lot of Chessington's outside caterers are what's nice. When we did Wilderfest, we had I had a curry, and it was delicious. But it's the same thing I could have got at Thorpe Park for Oktoberfest and Fright Nights. And yeah, the outside catering is good, so they're in-house catering. It's not great. Speaking of not great, and it's so terrible that Alton Towers is doing what they're doing with their catering. Aramark once again ruining a good park.
Yeah, we've done Alton Towers a few times this year. Towards the back end of the year, we've started taking our own food in because the Aramark offerings are abysmal. We're not gonna dice about this. They are abysmal. I shouldn't expect to pay £9 for a tiny sort of kids burger with nothing in it and cold chips.
Yeah,
and
I think with
likewise the chicken place at Alton Towers, that's gone downhill now.
Yeah, and it's a shame because when Merlin, a few years back, their chicken, they call them chicken nuggets, but they're more like chunks of chicken in some form. And they were probably the best thing you could get at a theme park. And now, as you say, you can go and you can pay £9 or something like £6, I think it is, with the discount for a 99p McDonald's cheeseburger. Only it's a McDonald's cheeseburger that's been sat around for a couple of hours.
Which is really annoying when they do stuff like the little treat vans, especially the one that's outside Curse, and I think there's one or like the granny fries that are kicking around. They're really, really good. Why can't you do kind of more of that level of stuff?
Yeah.
It's a bit annoying. Alton Towers and Merlin, get it sorted.
Yeah, I'm going to say, either boot Aramark or get whip them into shape. Because when they do try with the curse treats, they do get it right. But there's just not enough of that. No. So those are our worst food awards.
Yeah.
So this next award. It's either an award or a negative, positive or negative, depending on where you look at it, but it's Roughest Ride. And our nominations for these are, obviously, Grand National at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, Big One at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, Vampire at Warby Belgium, Dreamcatcher at Bobbejaanland, Stampeder at Portaventura, and Solar Ride at Thorpe Park. Now for me, number 3 is Stampeder, and it's only for a very small section of the ride because the vast majority of it is bearable. But then you'll get the odd bits that it feels like Grand National does.
Yeah.
Or it's like, dump. But overall, it's not terrible, but there are a lot worse. And it could be a bit smoother, and it is a bit of a shame, because otherwise it doesn't ruin the ride, but it doesn't add to it either. So, can't really add to that. That's Stampeder. So for you, number 3.
My number 3 is Saw at Thorpe Park. Now, I don't mind sort of the odd sort of coaster being rough in places, but Saw is getting to the stage where it's not enjoyable anymore for me.
It's a torture device, and I
Yeah,
like it.
it is a proper torture device, which, yes, okay, it does go in with the theming, but I really wish they'd do something about the over-shoulder restraints and either kind of bring them down lower so your head doesn't bash them so much as you go, or do something with them entirely.
Lapbars.
Potentially lap bars, but yeah. So, yeah, that's that one for me.
Yeah, and then the next two, number 1 and 2, we both agree on. So number 2 I'll talk about, which is Big One. And it is a bit of a shame that the Big One is as rough as what it is, because they seem to be investing all this money. And last close season was, I think, the first time that they retracked it, and we got back to it, and it didn't make the blindest bit of difference.
No.
So far as we could tell.
Yeah, unfortunately, where they have done the retrack, they haven't really smoothed in the transitions from the old track to the new track. And if you know where it is, it's absolutely, it's quite horrific.
Yeah,
now.
it's basically
It's really
you do the
jerky and horrible.
turnaround, you come back down towards Boulevard, I think it is, then you go down a hill, then you come back, and it's that little drop at the bottom there. It just does not feel pleasant at all.
No.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but if you take old track off, manufacture new track, put new track on, you've not done anything with the supports. So the track is, you're just replacing crap-shaped track with crap-shaped track. Now, obviously, Python went through the same sort of treatment, and I didn't ride Python, but we rode Python, and it'd been completely retracked, and it was comfortable. I'm expecting the same in Nemesis when that opens next year. But yeah, Big One. They need to do something with the trains, I think, because it's just put some springs on it or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But Big One pales in comparison.
Yeah, and unfortunately, also our joint number 1 as well at Blackpool Pleasure Beach is Grand National. Now, before everyone jumps on us, we know this is a heritage ride. We know it's over 100 years old. We know it's got listed status, and there's not really much they can do with it. And for some people out there, they absolutely love the rough and readiness and the way it kind of throws you around. I personally do not like broken bones and spleens and Christ knows what else that goes with it. For me, it's sort of too rough, and I wish they could do something potentially with the trains to make, as you're going down the drops and you hit the bottom of the drop, a lot softer. Because that's where a lot of the issues lie. You can kind of get with the jerkiness and the side-to-sideness a bit more, but them drops now are getting absolutely horrific.
Yeah.
And it's genuinely one of them. I come off this year going, I told you I didn't want to go on it. This is why. And he agreed with me.
Yeah, this year's the first time I've ridden it and not really enjoyed it as much as what as I could have done. Because for me, Roughest Ride is an award, less a condemnation. Stampeder and a Big One, it's a bit of a condemnation. Grand National, it's 50-50. Yes, it's rough, great, but it's a bit too rough now.
Yeah.
So that's Roughest Ride.
Yeah. So, biggest letdown then. This is something that either as part of an attraction or the whole attraction or event that we felt let us down in some way, shape or form, or didn't live up to the hype it created. So, nominees are Valhalla at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, Big Thunder Mountain at Disneyland Paris, Flies Restraints at Phantasialand, The World of Jumanji at Chessington Adventures, Baron at Efteling, and Ghost Train at Fort Park.
Just to interject there, the reason why Baron's on there is because Baron was closed.
Yes.
Which is a letdown.
Yeah.
But anyway, moving on to the awards.
So both in our number 3s is Big Thunder Mountain, Disneyland Paris. Now I've done, like I've stated in previous videos, Disneyland Florida, and absolutely loved it. Big Thunder was one of my highlights for that park 15 years ago, admittedly. And I was expecting big things from this. I'd hyped it up beyond all recognition today, and I was like, yeah, you're gonna love this, it's gonna be brilliant, it's gonna be an unhinged like Colorado adventure. And it kind of wasn't. That's not to say it's not a good ride. It is a good ride. It's just very, 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 very tame. And it's a lot tamer than I expected. Like the Florida one, I remember being a little bit unhinged, chucked you around a little bit, but not too much. this, you didn't move at all in it.
Yeah, no,
Which is kind of weird for a mine train. If you're a mine train aficionado, you're sat there going, well, where's the chucking into the corners? There is none.
Yeah, I felt like that Colorado event probably spoiled that for me, and the other mine trains that we've done this year. So it is a shame with Big Thunder, but not quite as much of a shame as my number 1, which is Tracy's number 2, Valhalla.
Yeah.
Now, Valhalla is... it's difficult to talk about Valhalla without mentioning the community as a whole, because everyone jumped on how good it was.
Yeah.
And I will preface this by saying we've only had one ride on it, but therein lies the problem. The one ride that we had on it was pants.
Yeah.
The issues that a lot of people have, we also had, so the boats being filled with water and stuff like that. But I felt like a lot of the times I was going through, and considering that it was this, this amazing, world's best water ride, world's best dark ride, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And some of the sequences that you went past, you think this looks like something out of a ghost train, not a fun fair.
Yeah.
I was expecting big things with the finale. Everyone called it the Ring of Fire, and I believe you're supposed to go down a drop, and then the fire's supposed to come up around you, and basically the entire room essentially comes on fire. We got one fire tornado.
Yeah.
And that's my problem with Valhalla, is the fact that it's not reliable. We could go on it next year and everything be different. And if that's the case, then great. That improves Valhalla. It should be good, but we just didn't find it was.
Yeah, it's one of them. Considering Blackpool Pleasure Beach have spent the best part of allegedly £6 million on this ride, you are sat there going, well, where have you spent it?
Yeah.
Like, it builds it up that you go up quite a big sort of first hill climb, and you're just like, right, what goes up theoretically must come down. And the drop at the end is absolutely tiny, and you're just like, well, hang on, where's the rest of the ride? And it's severely lacking. The fact that you go on Rugrats water ride and get wetter says something.
Oh, no, I don't take away from it. Valhalla lived up to the you get soaked. It's just that it felt like you were soaked in a warehouse at times. And it is a shame, but that's Valhalla. Which leads us on to your number 1.
Yeah, my
and this
number
will come
1.
No surprise if anybody's been on social media.
World of Jumanji. Now, I'll be honest, I didn't have great expectations for this when Chessington announced it. Because I was like, right, they've chosen an IP that's going to be dead inside of 10 years unless they carry on with the movies, which currently there are no plans to. So I was like, right, fair enough. They can take that, they can merge it into the rainforest area, not a problem. But then what are they going to do with World of Dragons, which is sitting in the middle between World of Jumanji and the rainforest area? So I wasn't excited for this. And when we got there a few days after opening, it wasn't looking its best. It was still looking like a construction site in places. And I'll be honest, it looked like you'd stepped into a garden centre. And I was just like, where's the forest? This isn't a forest. With like the sort of animations and all these things coming out for it, it showed essentially a rainforest, and we ended up with a garden centre. And it's just like, wow, this is like a major letdown.
It is a bit of a shame, because I was under the impression it was supposed to be getting mature trees and stuff like that. And I think a lot of the problems that World of Jumanji had was the fact that the general public are ignorant and they just walked across everything. Yeah. So, it might have looked amazing on the day when it first opened, but people taking shortcuts, which literally saves 3 steps across a bed and then destroying the plants that's in there. The plants that were in, like I say, they weren't mature. They were expected to grow. In years to come, it probably will look like an actual, Jumanji area, failing that, some form of jungle or rainforest. Mandrill Mayhem, the signature attraction in there, is okay at best. It wobbles around somewhat chronic, and yes, it is great when you ride it in the 7th row, because we did get back and have a go at it. But everything else after that, it feels too tame. I still think that Storm Chaser is better as a kids instructor ride, and there's a lot better in Europe. But obviously not everything can be Europe, so that's fine. But the 2 other attractions We've not tried Mamba Strike because the queues are too long for it, and we did have a go on Ostrich Stampede and it broke down.
It broke down, yeah. Which seems to be a regular occurrence since they put that in. That is the one ride that always goes, and they seem to be having intermittent problems, admittedly, with Mandrill Mayhem. Now, don't get us wrong, it is a nice coaster for kids. Not going to deny that. If you're an adult, go for the back seat because you'll find that more thrilling. But it does kind of feel lacking in places, and it is what is going to be the next step for that area with Chesington, especially, like I say, with Land of Dragons in the middle. Unless you're going to paint all the dragons green and make them earth dragons and kind of tie it in, it kind of feels really out of place.
That's a speculation video anyway for future. But yeah, just talk about World of Jumanji. Yeah, it was just a letdown. But World of Jumanji and Valhalla, really briefly before we waffle on too much, they are lumped in the same thing, that it was oversold to us, I think.
Yeah.
And I don't know. That's something that I can go into in a different video because I might upset a lot of people with my opinions on that one. But yeah, it's a shame that they didn't do what we expected of them.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So that's biggest letdown. So next award is going to be Best Overall Theming, you've just seen. And the parks in the running for this one are Disneyland Paris, Fantasyland, Efteling, Toverland, Portaventura World, and Park Asterix. Obviously not many UK parks there.
No, and this is overall theming throughout the entire park from start all the way through to finish.
Yeah, so for me, it starts off with Park Asterix. We've already spoke, kind of at length as to how good the park is. Yes, the theming, it just continues throughout. They've got different areas, such as the Greek area, Roman areas. Land of the Gauls, Tau Tatis, Festival Tau Tatis. It's just all very nicely done. Exactly the same as my number 2, Portaventura World. They've got nicely themed areas such as the Himalayan areas, the China area, Siesta, Aventura. Was it Siesta? Sesamo Aventura. There's a Sesame Street area, and the Mediterranean town that they've got to start. It's just lovely. The Western themed area at Portaventura, is it's brilliant. It's just extensive. But then that leads me into what I think is the best overall themed park in the that we've done this year anyway, and that is Phantasialand, to the surprise of nobody. It has Ruckburg, it's got Klugheim, it's got
Mexico, it's got Italy,
Mexico,
Africa.
Deep into Africa. They've got
China.
It's just all very, very lovely, and I'm fairly certain, just to spoil things, it would have been on your list had it not been for the fact it's such a compact park. But yeah, for me, even if the entire park was as drab as as the next park, and it just had Ruckburg, that would still probably carry it because Ruckburg is insane.
Yes, someone here is easily pleased with his theming.
Oh, it's not easily pleased. Ruckburg, it's just lovely. Even though Fly might not be the best coaster in the world, it fits its area very well. The hotel fits in nicely. It feels like a snapshot of a whole city in a very small area. They've done an excellent job of that.
Yeah, I will agree. Ruckburg Fantasyland is fantastic, but unfortunately they've got sort of 3 or 4 of their areas pretty much on top of each other, and it's kind of a bit jarring at times where you are. So that's why it's not on my list. But
onto your list.
Onto my list, yeah. In at number 3 is Efteling, and this is purely down to the fact that essentially the slightly Middle Eastern area where they've got the Aladdin ride doesn't look the best. It looks
Fata
nice.
Morgana.
Yeah, Fata Morgana. It doesn't look the best. Not to say it doesn't look nice, but it just it doesn't sit well with where it is. And they were doing some work on a bit of the stuff in Storybook Village when we went, and they could have covered it a bit better.
But those are
But they're minor things. Yeah. But that's why it's in at my number 3. Number 2 for me, Park Asterix, because it did the theme, did it well all the way through the park from the start, but at the same time did not shove it in your face constantly like Phantasialand did, which is also good. And then number 1 for me for this year is Portaventura. It's got a fantastic looking Wild West area, and the way they've done it, it gives into their Mediterranean area, very, very nice. And sort of as you come out the Wild West area, if you go around the back of the park, you get into China and Tibet, which is all very, very nicely done.
I've got to mention Polynesia. That is such a lovely
And then
area.
that leads into the Polynesian area, and weirdly they've got Sesame Street in the middle, and it doesn't look out of place, which and it's brilliantly done, and I love it when theming is brilliantly done and it gives away gradually
Merged.
to the next area, and you feel properly immersed. Like when you're in Polynesia, because it was hot, you were getting bit by bugs, you felt like you were in Polynesia.
I liked Portaventura. It's just a lovely park.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's best overall theming.
Yeah. Best merchandise. Now, this is a dividing sector between the two of us in a lot of parks. So our nominees for this are Disneyland Paris, Park Asterix, Fort Park, Phantasialand, Efteling and Blackpool Pleasure Beach. So in at number 3 for me was Efteling. Once again, because they had a great choice and a great selection. You don't expect to go to a theme park and pick up sort of nice woodcut art reliefs. You don't expect to pick up tea towels. You don't expect to pick up essentially a whole kitchen set.
Yeah, all the little miniatures, so you can make your own little miniature Efteling.
Yeah, and you don't expect sort of things like that. And I really, really like parks that kind of step out the box with merchandise and go, ooh, this is something a bit different. So that's my number 3. In at number 2 for me is Park Asterix. Once again, extensive merchandise range. We went in, you could pick up beer glasses, understandably, but you could also pick up beer trays. Thimbles, that was a new one. Aprons, cuddly toys, bowls, plates. Once again, Park Asterix, you could pick up near enough an entire kitchen set.
Mm-hmm.
And then number 1 for me, Phantasialand, because once again, extensive range. The only thing that a lot of the European parks don't have is pin badges. So if you're expecting pin badges, don't be too surprised when you can't find them. But that said though, you can take home everything else instead. Phantasialand's got quite a big range. Means say I come away with a fleece mug, a pillow and something else.
Yeah, you got a mouse au chocolat.
I did.
Mat
I
for the
got a
cat.
cat for the mat for the cat, for the cat balls to go on.
Yeah.
She loves it.
So, as for my list, my number 3 is Park Asterix. Same reasons, extensive range, and I felt like a lot of the shops didn't, cross over too much. Unlike Disneyland Paris, where a lot of those were, you'd have 75% of the same stuff in each of the shops, and you just get a little bit of it. Whereas Park Asterix, it did feel like, oh, we need to go in that shop because there's things in there that we've not seen. It wasn't ridiculously expensive. Came away with all sorts. You can just see the top of it just over there, one of the cushions that I bought. Loved Park Asterix. Not quite as much as I loved what Thorpe Park have done this year, and that's why Thorpe Park's number 2. Yes, Thorpe Park's range isn't as extensive, but I can buy T-shirts there now, and I'm commending them for that. I've always come away with, as you can probably see on just there, so I mean pin badges, T-shirts now. I've got a stealth cushion, which you can just see just there. All sorts of daft little things, but it's not just that. Also the freestyle drinks cups, which you can see just above there. They're specifically the Fright Nights ones. They put LEDs in it, which is
Got an LED one this year.
yeah, it's fun. Thorpe Park just did everything right for merchandise this year, but not quite as well as what Efteling did for me though. Efteling really did surprise me, based on the fact that we'd done Plopsaland and Bobajaanland beforehand, and both their offerings were crap. To put it bluntly. Efteling, like as you say, you can come away with reliefs, you can come away with art prints, obviously standard fridge mags and stuff like that. They did have some pin badges as well, but as you can just see just here, room spray, hygiene things. I'm looking,
hand and body wash.
I'm looking forward next year to coming back with a boot full of their body wash, because yes, it's expensive, but it felt like I was getting a proper good quality product, and I like the fact that I'm spending it at Efteling. I really, really liked Efteling's range. I just wish the T-shirts were slightly longer in the body, but and they could do with a bit more ride specific, because they did seem to have. I think it was the top 5. I think it was Flying Dutchman, Python, Baron.
Symbolica, I think they had some stuff for.
Yeah, but they just could do with a little bit more. But hopefully in time they'll do that. But that's best merchandise.
Yep.
So, best soundtrack. Now, this is quite a big thing because not only do I enjoy the soundtracks in the parks, but I also listen to them when I'm at work. So for this, it's not just rides, but it can also be areas and also park themes. But we've put down Haunted House Monster Party, Rookburg, the whole of it, Galactica, Pirates of the Caribbean at Disneyland Paris, Symbolica, and Carnival Festival. For my list, I've gone with Galactica because I just love Galactica's theme. It fits the ride theme incredibly well. It's pretty. It's fun. I just like it so much.
Yeah. Galactica is one of them odd ones that it really, really, really suits the ride and it suits the area as well. Gonna be interested to see what they do with it, if they do anything with it when Nemesis opens this year. But yeah, I like Galactica.
Next year.
Sorry, next year.
I love Galactica's theme. It's my favourite at Alton Towers, despite the fact that, to be fair, Alton Towers have got some absolutely bangers. I like the Smilers theme tune, and I do like Spinball Wizard and such. But yeah, Galactica. Then Pirates of the Caribbean, that's a sneaky, upper-handed tactic, is that because I like the films and Hans Zimmer did an excellent job of the scores. It's the only thing on my list that's not done by Imascore. So yeah, that one gets a bit of a free pass because the score it just fits the ride because it comes from the film. Just magnifique. And then finally, at number one, you could not go to Rookburg and not notice the lovely soundtracks that's in there. Imascore have hit the nail on the head there. The first thing that comes to mind with that is the fact that when we were stood in one of the stairways in the hotel, it felt like the building was creaking because it's made out of expanding metal and the steam going on, and it's part of the soundtrack that's pumped into the area. It's just so good. Can't really explain as to why. I just really enjoy it. There's nothing that is bad about Rookburg's soundtrack. But to be fair, you can say that's the same for all Imascore soundtracks. But anyway, well, I'll have a go now.
Yeah. So number 3 in my list for soundtracks is Symbolica at Efteling, because sort of it plays outside before you get into the kind of pre-show area. It plays through the pre-show area, and it obviously plays all the way through the ride as well. Now, depending on what path you take, that does change slightly at the end, but that doesn't take from it. And it genuinely, when you're in the queue, you actually feel kind of real calm, and it's just like, ooh, this is magical, which is what musics and soundtracks should do with rides. So yeah, really, really like that one. Number 2 for me, Pirates of the Caribbean. I've always thought this is a good soundtrack, considering I did go on the ride before the movies come out, so I have that bit of background knowledge. But yeah, once again, as Dave said, fits the ride really well. It's done really well, and it's really slightly magical, and you just like, oh yeah, I'm excited for this, which is what it should do. My number 1 is one of my favourite rides in the UK, and that's Haunted House Monster Party at Legoland. I love this ride, and I partly love it because of the soundtrack. You cannot get offended in any way, shape or form by this ride. If you do, then you shouldn't be at Legoland because you're miserable beyond all regards. But Haunted House Monster Party, for me, is the Legoland theme, and I will quite often listen to this because it's just do, 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 and it's quite like you'll just find yourself doing that. Singing it merrily as you go about your day. It's a wonderful soundtrack and I love it.
Yeah, Symbolica and Haunted House Monster Party, though they didn't make my list, it's not because they're bad, it's because the others are just so better. They are excellent theme tunes. I listen to Haunted House Monster Party, so it's on my my theme park music list, along with Helix, but we can't put Helix's music on there because I've not written it. Otherwise that would probably be up there as well. Soundtracks are something that I could go into quite extensively because I'm a big fan of music and outside the theme park stuff. So yeah, it's just the melding of two things: music, theme parks coming together. Lovely, especially when it's in Rookburg. That's best soundtrack.
Best themed area for kids. Now this is an interesting one because obviously we're doing this from the perspective of adults going into a kids area. Now we've both got siblings. I've got more than Dave, so I feel I've got a bit more throw here if anything. So our nominations are CBeebies Land in Alton Towers, Sesame Ventura in Portaventura World, Thomas Land, Drayton Manor, Maya Land and Plopsaland Japan, Nickelodeon Land at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, and Wonderworld and Land Van Touche, which are two separate but conjoined areas in Toverland. So to hit off, my number 3 is Thomasland at Drayton Manor.
I just realised it's the same as mine as well. So.
Yeah, same as Dave's as well. Now, we both like this area. We've both grown up, like a lot of people watching this video, watching Thomas. And because I've got younger siblings, I've seen the newer iterations, like some of them, not all of them. But Thomasland, like Peppa Pig World at Bolton's Park, is very, very well done. And I wish at times that other theme parks and other areas were as good as these two lands. Because it's annoying at times that you get something so good and then you spoil it with the rest of the park that you haven't bothered with.
Yeah,
thing.
Thomasland stands out specifically at Drayton Manor because the areas are not the best theme, but Thomasland is. You do feel like you're on Sodor. All the rides have got Thomas characters attached to them. It's just lovely.
Yeah.
Even when they brought out the new one, Thomas and Percy's Submarine Splash, that's based on All Engines Go, which is the new iteration of Thomas.
Yeah.
Not everyone particularly likes it, but it fits in with the Thomasland and whatnot. And like I said, I grew up watching Thomas the Tank Engine, but I remember it back when it was the models.
Rev W. Aldry.
Yeah, the actual models and such rather than CGI and such. But I've seen extensive videos covering the new stuff, and yeah, it does seem like it's all good fun. But Thomasland is great.
It is, yeah. So my number 2 is Mireland in Plopsaland, Japan. Now, this is an indoor area in Plopsaland, and at first you don't realise it's a kids' area.
I thought it was a restaurant.
Yeah, Dave thought it was a restaurant. Because Plopsaland is essentially very, very good, but there's a lot of IPs because of the production company that owns the park.
Studio 100, yeah.
So they've got a lot of their IPs in there, but Mireland, you walk into it and it's literally like you've been shrunk down to the size of a bee and you have walked into kind of a bit of a forest. And it is beautifully themed. There's quite a few rides in there. You don't realise that there's literally 8 or 9 rides in there, to be fair. And it's beautifully done, beautifully themed. Love it.
Charming is the word I would use to
very
describe
charming,
it. And
yeah.
just a little bit of an Easter egg, and I can't 100% confirm this, but I believe the reason why Mireland is the way that it is because it did start off as a bee farm. The area before Plopsaland came along was a bee farm. So it's a little nod to where they came from.
Yep. Number 1 in my list, and number 2's in Dave's list, just heads up, is CBeebies Land at Alton Towers. Once again, this is British theming done well. And once again, slight annoyance that they haven't followed that through in other sections of the park. But for those of you that have grown up with CBeebies and CBBC, it's got like Postman Pat in there. It's got In the Night Garden, which as an adult, if you know nothing of that, is a brilliant little ride because you are just like, right, okay, I feel like I'm 16 taking illicit drugs behind the bike sheds again.
Yeah, that ride was incredibly good fun when you've got a load of adults on it because the boat nearly sinks.
It does, yeah. And sort of it's just little things like that. We recently discovered
Justin's Pyromatic,
which in the older days was the Ribena Bish Bash Bosh, and I didn't realise they kept it the same. But a bunch of adults with 2 older children in there, we had miles of fun.
Oh gosh, yeah. that is a hidden gem because not a single person I've ever spoke to has mentioned it, and I didn't realise that adults could go in. It was only that I think it was Kathy or someone like that said, "Do you want to go in?" I was like, "We can't go in there. It's for kids, isn't it?" And we went in, and an absolute blast.
We did, yeah. And it's brilliant. And CBeebies Land is one of them. Once again, it's very well done. And yeah, it's brilliant fun for kids, brilliant fun for adults. They have a couple shows in there as well and a couple of restaurants. So yeah, it's really, really nicely done.
We mentioned about Alton Towers having pants food. The food in their restaurant is probably the best because they do
pizzas, they do little pastas as well.
And the jacket potatoes. They were really tasty. But my third was Thomasland, my second was CBeebies Land, but for me, Sesame Ventura at Portaventura World is the best themed area for kids that I've done this year. It was just lovely. I grew up with Sesame Street, but I weren't really that bothered by it. But the fact that they've got a little junior roller coaster there, Tammy Tammy. They've got
Interactive dark
Street
ride.
Mission. Street Mission nearly made the list earlier on, but it was just outclassed by others. But that is such a good ride.
They've got Explory Treehouse ride. They've got a monorail that goes above the park.
There's pretty much everything that's in the other park, the other ones that we mentioned. They have in Sesamo Ventura, but obviously it's a nice climate. It's just lovely, and they had some really good food offerings there as well. So,
they did, yeah. And with one of the food offerings, you initially get your food and watch a show, which is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I've got no complaints about Sesamo Ventura at all, apart from I quite like it if there was more. Because it doesn't feel like Sesame Street is as young an audience target as what I thought it was.
Yeah.
Because I didn't feel like I was out of place there. But they're our best themed areas for kids. So next one, Anything Goes award, is a kind of like a wild card award, basically so that we could highlight anything that didn't make it into our other lists or anything that doesn't quite fit. So in this regard, we've got Revolution at Bobajanland, River Quest's Drop at Fantasyland, told that'd be coming back, Furious Baco at Portaventura World, El Paso Special at Bobajanland, officially joining the community, and I'll go into that in a bit, and Tracy's nomination, La Ronde de Canard at Popsland de Pan. Now, my list is River Quest's Drop, and the reason why that's on the on the list is because of the fact that we turned around and we both pretty much sent it's that we. As we mentioned earlier on, we'd seen the drop that anyone can see. It's something like a 6 foot drop. You think that's
about 10.
Yeah,
it's about 10, 12
10
foot.
6 foot drop,
and it's quite steep. So compared to anything we've got here in the UK, so you are genuinely sat there as a UK person going,
"Ooh, that's
a steep drop. Okay, this could be the steepest rapids ride we've ever been on."
Yeah,
but no.
The drop that you do go down supersedes that. It's like
it's about 3 stories high.
It's it's so noteworthy.
Yeah.
Number 2 for me is Furious Baco, and the reason why it's basically all of Furious Baco. It's the queue line, it's the story, it's the ride, everything about Furious Baco for me.
Say if you want crazy in Spanish, you want Furious Baco, and it's genuinely one of them. You figure out the story kind of after you've ridden it about 2 or 3 times, and it is a launch coaster, kind of like Rita and Stealth. Difference being though that the car's above the track. Now that makes a lot of difference.
It's just bonkers. On-ride video, so you can actually record the sheer terror of your launching. It's not quite as fast as Stealth, but it keeps up in pace. It's just wonderful. But
and it's rattly all the way through. And you kind of sort of see it, and you're going around just like, this could be a bit rattly, but it's probably like all the way through. But that only adds to its charm. The less sort of juddery seat are on the inside, I think it was, or
the
on
inside.
the inside.
The outside the wing is worse, but I did it on the outside twice, and I don't feel like I got off that thinking that was phenomenally horrible.
And it is juddery, but it's not too side to side headbangy. That is the important thing to point out. The judderiness, I think, like you say, adds to its charm. Because it's just like, oh my god, it's going. It's like, right.
So that's Furious Backer. And then for me, number 1 is officially joining the community. And what we mean by that is this year was the first year that we took part in enthusiast events, and off the back of those, because we did the Drake Manor event in August, I think it was, and then we did early on in the year the Alton Towers one, which is the one where we started to make friends, because at that point we'd met George and Kathy from Loops and Donuts. Later on in the year we met
Love to
Explore, Mike and Stacey. We met Nick and Gemma at the Drake Manor event.
And we met other people as well on these events,
as well as Joe from Theme Park Insanity. It feels like this year like I say, we have officially joined the community, and that's the thing that I wanted to award that to, because it's just a special thing. But moving on from that, I'll move on to your list so I can take the pee out of you a little bit later
on. Number 3 in my list is Revolution at Bobajanland, and you don't know what to expect when you first rock up to this because kind of you go into a building and you walk under the building, and then you get into the queue, and if you're not already in the know, you don't actually realise it's a roller coaster because it doesn't really give too much away. And you get in the car and it's literally like you've got into a 1980s Dodgems car and there's a line of 40 of them.
Yeah, it's a ridiculously long train.
Ridiculous long train, but comfiest train in the world. You literally get in and it's a pull-up lap bar, which is a new one, and I quite like them because you can literally adjust them to wherever the hell you like them.
It doesn't need that lap bar though.
Yeah, and you go and it's essentially 1980s sort of weird techno, lights everywhere, like you're clubbing. Like if you are a clubber, you will be sat there going, love this, like, yeah, because it's good and it's not fast. There's no upside down sections in it, and it's just a
big
pleasant
spiral
ride. It's just a big spiral, and it does what it does, and it does it well. So that's why it's in there. I love it. For me, joining the community, that was number 2. It gives Dave someone else to cheer his ears off about ride stats, which I love him for, but I do get a bit bored after a while.
But for some reason, having the community and the loving sense of sportsmanship and riding together and whatnot pales in comparison to riding a giant duck.
It does. Now, I do like my little charming rides, and for me, La Ronde de Canards at Plopsaland de Pan is one of the massively charming, massively kids rides that you've got to do. I'm sorry, you've got to be. It's got to be done. When we first saw it on our first videos, I was like, "There's a giant duck. We are going to ride that," and we did. I love that ride. It's literally you're in a big duck and you go in a circle and it goes up and down and it quacks at the start and it quacks at the end. That's all it does. But it's wonderful.
It's
and
fun.
I love it.
It's fun.
It's
That's the point
yeah.
of this award part, though, was to sort of not just award, but also to remember things that we found were amazing. Like things that nearly made it onto this list would have been first stepping into Ruckberg, because you just look at it, it's like
Charles Lindbergh, from the moment you step in to the moment you go outside, is themed all the way through, and it suits the area. The ride suits the area. The restaurant, everything, it's wonderful.
Yeah, seeing Efteling's House of Five Senses and stuff like that. Yeah, there's so many things that we could have put on here, but those are the Anything Goes awards.
They are. Best customer service then. We're now getting into the home stretch. You'll be pleased to know. So if you've stuck with us this far, whey, give yourself a gold star. So best customer service then for us. This is for everything that's kind of from us booking to us going to us kind of coming home if we had any issues. So from start to finish, whole entire thing. So for best customer service then, our nominees are Phantasialand, Efteling, Disneyland Paris, Park Asterix, Legoland Windsor and Fort Park. So kicking off at number 3 for me is Legoland Windsor. I can't fault this park. We've never had a bad experience every time we've gone, and if we've had an issue, it's been dealt with quickly, it's been dealt with efficiently, no complaints whatsoever. We stayed in a Legoland hotel this year. Whilst expensive, we did get extra toiletries because I went and asked for them. Because I wanted the little Lego toiletries.
Legoland it's absolutely fine. But that's something that the park prides itself on. It's not just a theme park, it's part of the Lego brand. So it's going to be like that. Just to interject, my number 3 is Park Asterix. And the reason that is because the other two are the same. So anyway, Park Asterix, not necessarily the best customer service in terms of, as I mentioned, with the food outlets and stuff like that. But from arriving at the park and having any queries, can we record on rides and stuff like that, to booking it and the value for money and stuff like that. Everything led up to Park Asterix getting number 3, just behind Efteling.
Which is both our joint number 2s. Like, we genuinely didn't know what to expect to Efteling. It was our 3rd, maybe 4th park on the trip, and by this stage, yes, we were getting grips to the various different languages because we did Belgium, French, Netherlands, German on that trip. So when we got to Efteling, we weren't sure what we were going to get, but we managed. And Efteling, from start to finish, any queries you had, they found, like a lot of the continental parks, did find a language that was understandable for both you and them, and it was all dealt with really quickly. And Efteling, you really, really felt that they actually put the customer, as in, like you, obviously, at the heart of everything. and that was nice to see.
Yeah, the only reason why it's not number one is because the number one really does take that, what Efteling does, to the max, because Efteling is obviously a small company. Disneyland Paris is not. Disneyland is it's obviously part of the Disney brand, and obviously it's number one for us. It's Efteling, but that slight bit more. And I'm fairly certain if we went into Efteling on our birthdays, we could get birthday badges like you do at Disneyland Paris. If they had as many characters as what Disneyland Paris does, you'd be queuing for those, and you'd just have a wonderful experience with those. Disneyland Paris was Efteling, but more so.
Yeah, and this was the one, because I've done Disney before, I knew what to expect from Disney customer service and kind of what it should be at. And I'm really glad that when Dave got there and was just like, oh, well, we're only in a 3-star hotel, and it was really kind of kitsy, and he was just like, all right.
It was a 2-star.
Okay, this is better than I expected.
Yeah, the thing that stands out of that is the fact that the hotel reception was incredibly busy, and I was like, oh, this is going to take ages, because it did at Portaventura and whatnot, but we walked in and we were sort of flagged over to a table because we'd done all the checking and whatnot online ahead of the case. It was like, yeah, well, you guys, your room key, off you go. Yeah. And it was just so good. It's just set everything up just right. Disneyland Paris, you pay for it, but you get the service there.
Yeah.
So anything to add? I don't think there's anything to add on those, is there?
No, I don't think there is. No.
Those are the best customer services.
Right, we've had the best, now this is the worst. Now, for worst customer service, this could be one experience or it could be a few things over a period of time. We've only got 3 parks on this because it was genuinely, we struggled, to be fair, to put these 3 on, and we like to be fair, and this is why there's only 3. So, sort of in our 3, in no particular order, we've got Chessington. Unfortunately, I felt they could have done Jumanji a bit better. The incident we had with the steak restaurant this year really didn't pale, and
that's the reason for it.
And it just seems at the moment like Chessington are preoccupied with other stuff, and they're not putting the customers at the front, which they have been in years before, and this year it's just customer service in general just seems to be lacking.
It's the way that steak restaurant for me that would put Chessington on that list. But other than that, everything else is fine with it. I do want to try and preface that although this is a negative thing, we don't hate the parks at all.
And we're still going to go because, like, obviously, if people see this from the parks, we want to give you guys a chance to improve. It's a bit of feedback.
Yeah, I suppose it's our way of giving feedback to parks. But following on from that, I don't know which one I would say is worse of the two. In fact, I know I do know. So I'm going to put Drake Manor next, and only because... And this is a very specific thing to me, and everybody's going to rage, and I completely understand that, but they will not get back to you with specialist requests for doing videos.
For social media.
Yeah, so I've contacted them a couple of times, and I've been in and talked to their customer services on site, and their customer services on site are fantastic. It seems to be the marketing team that's the problem, and like this is a very unique to me situation. It's not going to be the general public, but I asked over and over again, because Shockwave dying, and Shockwave was one of my favourite rides, I wanted to, if I could, in any way, shape or form, recall on the ride, whether I'm on it, whether the camera's on it, I don't care how it goes, I just wanted to put a camera on it.
We were quite happy to sit there and, like, if they said, well, you can, but you've got to come on X day or X hours or do it after the park closes, fine. We had no problem with that. We were going to jump all through the hoops. If they wanted us to sign waivers, not an issue. We were fine to do that.
But we got no response at all.
Their social media team absolutely are not interested. And talking to other people in the community, the social media team aren't really interested unless you've got an absolute billion loads of viewers across the platforms.
Which is fine, yeah, I don't have a problem with that. If that's okay, but tell me. That's the problem that I have. Not that I'm not allowed to record. It's the fact that I didn't know I was allowed to go, and I had to go to other sources to find answers to that. So yeah, it's a minor thing, and hopefully next year Drake Manor, they improve, because we've had quite a few negative things to say, but they've got some good stuff coming next year, but not as bad as Blackpool Pleasure Beach for me. And this, I'm actually going to drag something up from a couple of a visit last year, and that is it's actually both this year. Sorry, both times we've been this year. It's their issue with vlogging cameras. and cameras in general. So the first time that we went, because we went for opening day, and they were very sort of, are we alright with that camera, because I've got a DSLR, and they seem to have a problem with the fact that I've got a DSLR. And it even made a news story. You know, there was I think it was
there were other people in the park that had their confiscated that day.
I think it was Marcus Gear or something like that, one of the big theme park photographers, and he was livid, which understandably so. And there's nothing on the website that suggests that you can't do that. So that's that. We had a decent day. Come back for when Valhalla had opened and whatnot, and suddenly you can't take microphones in.
Yeah.
External microphones that connect to, because I have an external microphone that connects to my GoPro, and that was never mentioned to us, and there's nothing on the website now. And I even reached out to the marketing team during the thing, and they didn't really have an answer. And I just felt really, if it's on the website, fair enough, but don't. I'm quite upset about that, because it's a case of I feel like I've done something wrong by bringing something that I shouldn't have done, despite the fact that when we were on the same visit, we stood in queue with a guy on the big one, and he'd got a camera, a GoPro in his pocket, and as soon as he got on the lift, he held the camera straight out.
Yeah.
And it's a case of, okay, so I'm trying to do everything by your rules, and I'm now having stuff taken off me, and you've got guys like that who are getting away with it.
Yeah, and yet, sort of the confusing thing here is that obviously a lot of people today have got smartphones which have got cameras with zooms at times better than DSLRs. They've got microphones that are better than essentially your standard like GoPro kit and your attachments and stuff like that, yet they're perfectly fine to be in the park. So it's a bit confusing, Blackpool Pleasure Beach, on what you're wanting from a social media policy. And it would be nice if you could get that on the website, either in its own page or in frequently asked questions, or you can give us a link.
Yeah, or just a flat out ban. If cameras, fair enough. If you want to ban vlogging cameras, or you've got to apply for them, then that's absolutely fine. I don't have a problem with that. And even if you say no, we don't want you filming in our park just yet, that's not a problem. But let us know beforehand, so that we're not making these. We're dragging stuff on that doesn't need to be with us. But that's more of a rant than an award. So I do apologise for that one.
The only other small thing that I have with Blackpool Pleasure Beach is obviously a lot of the parks in the UK do the refillable cups, which is perfectly fine.
Just
love the refillable cups.
There.
They are brilliant. And Blackpool Pleasure Beach, they do their own same one. However, unlike the Merlin ones that have the chargeable chip in the base of them, the Blackpool Pleasure Beach ones don't, and they put a label on. Now, if you get a bottle on one visit and you decide to, I'm going to save the turtles here and take it back and reuse it on the next visit, they do get a little bit arsey with you using that same bottle, because apparently
the designs are different.
And they can't stick a new label on your existing bottle, but they can stick a new label on a new bottle, entirely new bottle for you. So I don't see what the issue is. And I wish they would change that policy slightly to encourage more people to recycle and to actually reuse their bottles, rather than wasting more resources getting a new one when they don't need it.
Yeah, it seems unnecessary, does that? And it's surely it's a cost to them. If I don't know how much, 10p per bottle that they charge, they can save money like that. And Blackpool Pleasure Beach seems like it needs money at the moment. So it's not a big way, but it's something. Yeah. So that's the probably the worst one that we've had to talk about. So that's the worst customer services.
Righty, last award! Woohoo! So if you've stayed this far, well done. You've earned yourself a toilet brick. So this is our final category, and this is the big one. This is Park of the Year. Now, understandably, if you've stayed through, then we've got quite a lot of sort of stuff to work through, sort of positives, negatives, and you've probably got a good idea of what's going to be in this category. So
there's going to be Parc Asterix, Portaventura World, Efteling, Toverland, Fantasyland and Walibi Belgium. Those are all the parks that we feel deserve Park of the Year. There's plenty of others, Alton Towers, Thorpe Park, Legoland, even Flamingo Land. They've all done excellent things, but these ones are just the cream of the crop.
Yeah.
Starting off your list at
number 3. In at my number 3 is Portaventura World. Now, I enjoyed Portaventura World. First sort of proper holiday for me in a considerably long time, as in proper holidays. We went on a
Get on a
plane.
plane, yep.
One of the things that we didn't mention with Portaventura World is when you get off the plane in Rios Airport, you literally get off the plane onto the tarmac feeling like a rock star, and you look one way and all you can see is roller coasters, and it's brilliant. Portaventura World, to that extent, has been designed that if you're at least 20 minutes outside the park, you can see something of the park. It's generally Skyline and obviously roller coasters, or Hurricane Condor, which is their big ass drop tower. But it's brilliant, and I love Portaventura, and if you want a theme park holiday, I can well recommend it, because like, you've got the theme parks there, but you've also got the hotel literally a 10-minute walk away, which has got pools, which has got stuff to do, so you don't need to spend all the time in the parks. So I really like it for that. In at my number 2, and also Dave's number 2, is
Park Asterix.
Park Asterix. This is a park, to be fair. Can't go wrong. It's a nice park. There's enough space to walk around. It's, yeah, right, food offerings, a little bit lax. But everything else it does, from its customer service through to its merchandise, absolutely brilliant. And it doesn't chuck theme in your face either, which is also good. And then in at my number 1, understandably, is Efteling. Like, I am going to be a big advocate for this park, I think. And it's going to be one of them that I will quite happily visit over and over again. And I probably won't get bored of, unlike I do get bored of Alton Towers and Thorpe Park at times.
Just because they're so accessible, isn't it? That's the problem. And
Yeah.
I agree. Efteling, wonderful. Park Asterix and Portaventura. But for me, number 3 is Fantasyland. It was what I wanted it to be, I think. Initially, I was annoyed at it because of the way that you get to the park and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it was a bit busy on the initial day.
It was incredibly busy, and we weren't expecting that, and it just put me on the wrong foot. But as I got in, it sort of melted away because the park is wonderful. It's got what I wanted in rides. They are thrill machines. There's Mouse au Chocolat. There's what I can't remember what the name of the area was, but where the little kids rides were, right by the shop.
The little fairy area.
Yeah,
Little forest dragon
there's
is in
so
that one.
much to do at Fantasyland, and there's 3 hotels, I think, isn't there?
Yeah.
So I want to eventually get round to trying those. Food offerings were excellent, as said before. Talakan, Ruckberg. Yeah, there's just so much to enjoy about Fantasyland. Same with Park Asterix. So much to enjoy there. Depending on the day you ask me, Park Asterix and Fantasyland can interchange because they are so good. As we said, the food offerings not so good, but the merchandising was wonderful. Plenty of thrill rides, family rides, extreme rides like Tautatis and stuff. Just lovely. But I think for me, they do pale in comparison to Portaventura World, because exactly the same as what Tracy said there. It was a package holiday. We got on a plane. We arrived at Portaventura World. We were on roller coasters within like 3 hours of leaving the UK.
Yeah.
The weather was wonderful, which it's going to be. It's in Spain. The area is great. The only thing I will say is I do wish that there was a bit more of a resort around the park, because when you're at the top of Shambhala, it's like, there's a park, there's no oil refinery. But it never felt too busy. There was plenty of options for food, plenty of options for drinking. Our hotel room was nice. We had an issue with our hotel room. They sorted it before we'd even realised.
Yeah.
The shows were wonderful. It's just worthy of Park of the Year for me. People have got their negatives and stuff like that, and I am incredibly apprehensive about the potential sale of Portaventura, because it seems like Universal might be interested, but that's all speculation at this moment. It is up for sale, and I kind of want Merlin to buy it. So that we can essentially own it. Merlin had their hand in starting it, so it'd be nice to. It wasn't Merlin, it was Two Swords, but it would be nice to be able to essentially you go there even cheaper, get spend more time there. Yeah. Exactly the same as you want to do with Efteling and Park Asterix, Walibi Belgium, Toverland. There's so many good parks out there in Europe.
There is, yeah.
And if there's one thing that we kind of want we can award, I suppose, is the fact that European parks are just incredible.
They are.
And
they're for the majority of pretty much everything in Europe that we've done, they are incredibly good value for money, and granted, I know for a lot of families it's going to be a case of, well, we ain't got passports. But if you can get passports and you potentially, we drove, apart from Portaventura, we drove all our holidays this year. Channel Tunnel, incredibly easy to navigate. French, German, Belgian, Netherlands roads, also incredibly easy to navigate. And it's just generally, you'll get over there and you'll just be like, right, okay, didn't expect this at all. And it's across the board.
Yeah. There's so many other parks out
yeah.
there that we've not done. There's Bellawade, there's Wallaby, Holland,
Movie Park.
Yeah, Movie Park Germany.
Energylandia.
Exactly. The names can keep coming. And we've got all those to look forward to as well. And hopefully, you know, because it sounds like all we've done is bum over how good Europe is and how crap the UK is. The UK is not crap. It's the fact that Europe just is better.
Europe is consistent in its offer, and it's consistent across all the parks, where at times the UK is a little bit lacking in that, I feel.
Yeah.
That's not to say we haven't got some stellar rides over here, because obviously we've got Nemesis, we've got Hyperia opening this year, and then you get your themed areas, next year, like sort of Thomasland, Peppa Pig World down in Polton's Park, and then you've got your kind of outliers like sort of Adventure Island down in Southend and Flamingo Land up in Yorkshire. That, like, we do sort of ad hoc stuff a little bit better than the rest of the parks on the continent, but they do the whole package a bit better than what we do. So
Polton's Park would have got so many awards this year if I went for that.
If we win.
we've not visited this year. Hopefully next year. So I think that's going to conclude our little daft little award ceremony. I hope that it's been a bit of fun and you've not just saying, oh, look at these guys waffling crap. But it's been a way to get some opinions off our chest and just give parks recognition and rides recognition for the things that they've done. Especially Thorpe Park. One of the things that are going through, Thorpe Park is one that stands out that needs recognition for what they're doing. They're doing very good things in the UK. So we'll wrap up there, I think.
So anything you agree, disagree with, let us know in the comments, because we're always open for discussion.
Yeah, it would be very nice to see
it could form future posts, like, what do you think of this?
Yeah. So moving on to 2024 now. So everyone, because I think this will probably come out after Christmas. Hopefully you had a wonderful Christmas. Hopefully it's out before the new year. If not, hopefully you're having a wonderful new year. If not, have a wonderful new year.
Yep.
So that's a say out. So.
Bye.